Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Irene, and I'm the founder and chef of Mei Mei, based here in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Alyssa, our sales and marketing genius, and Annie, our manufacturing and operations guru. And we're so excited to tell you about our newest project, the Mei Mei Dumpling Company. We'd like to start by taking you back to our roots. Mei Mei opened as a food truck in 2012, and it was my big brother Andy's idea. Our family has always been obsessed with food, but Andy was not a cook. Mei Mei means little sister in Mandarin, so when he asked his two little sisters to help him open the business, we graciously agreed as long as he named the business after us. For us, starting the food truck business was all about connecting our Chinese American heritage with the incredible local food and farms of the Northeast and bringing that unique combination and our family's story to our guests. We opened Mei Mei Restaurant just a year and a half later. We centered the growth of our business around three pillars: local sourcing from farmers we trust, fair and empowering employment practices, and our belief that food can be an engine for positive change. Our work in all three of these areas has been recognized by Forbes, Zagat, and the James Beard Foundation, among others. But we're not here to talk about awards. Today is all about our food. Over the last 8 years, the Mei Mei brand has become synonymous with one thing, and that is dumplings. Most of our favorite childhood memories take place at the kitchen table where we gather with loved ones around a big bowl of dumpling filling, laughing, cooking, and eating, and we strive to bring that same joy to our guests through our food as well as our dumpling classes, which we now hold virtually for public, private, and corporate groups. At Mei Mei, we like to say that dumplings make the world go round. They're a universal language because almost every culture has a beloved dish that's a delicious wrapper around a delicious filling, an item that's analogous to the Chinese dumpling. They're the perfect comfort food vehicle for our creative approach to food, and we think that in combination with our values around sourcing, employment, and social justice, our dumplings can change the world. So over the years, we've built our community of dumpling lovers. We've been on the menu at countless of their weddings, birthdays, and other special events, and we keep in touch with them through our social media and newsletter. These are conscientious consumers who like our food and love what we stand for. They've made Mei Mei part of their lives, and that's why they are so loyal. The Mei Mei story is part of their story, and the Mei Mei values are their values too. So when COVID arrived in March, we closed our dining room. And while we've continued to offer takeout and delivery, we've ultimately lost about 80% of our business because of the pandemic. We've made lots of changes this year, but we've continually assured our guests dumplings aren't going anywhere. And in fact, they're going everywhere. We are doubling down on dumpling production and finding new ways to get our star product to our most loyal customers. We believe that our brand story and our product have the potential to grow way beyond this existing customer base. And so that is why we've debuted our line of packaged dumplings to reheat and enjoy at home. Alyssa is going to tell you all a little bit about how that's been going.
So in September, we brought our dumplings, our packaged dumplings, to a few local farmers markets, and we sold out nearly every time. We now have the problem where we can't keep making enough dumplings to keep up with demand. So we know that when we get our dumplings in front of a crowd of consumers, they disappear. So why do people go crazy for our dumplings? Well, as Irene mentioned, we've been around for a while, nearly 8 years, and over that time we've fed tens of thousands of guests and many who've become our loyal fans and brand advocates. They love our unique Chinese American dumplings. We also have vegan and vegetarian options, which makes our dumplings very approachable for folks with dietary restrictions. People, moreover, trust our ingredients. As a farm-focused business, we only use pasture-raised meats and source the majority of our produce from New England and New York. So we know that guests love our dumplings, and we have a winner if we can scale what our guests already love and buy over and over again. We are now a farm-focused, woman-owned consumer goods brand, launching first with an artisanal frozen dumpling line made from ethically sourced ingredients. We want to be the Ben and Jerry's of the dumpling world, a delicious product with a strong social mission. Mei Mei will continue to use food as an engine for positive change. For the long term, we are envisioning a product portfolio of quality kitchen staples along with our virtual cooking classes for a Mei Mei lifestyle brand experience. This is how we plan to retain our existing customer base and grow a brand that people want to have as a part of their lives. And of course, it all starts with dumplings. First, we're focusing on dumplings because we know there is a gap in the dumpling market. Most of what's in grocery stores has a mass-produced feel and lack of brand personality. By contrast, our dumplings have unique flavors and a compelling brand story. Here are some of the other brands you might find and see in Asian grocery stores, Trader Joe's, or Whole Foods. The only brands we see playing in the premium artisanal space are smaller, homegrown companies that don't have the benefit of 8 years of community building and name recognition like we do. We know the market is right for us. We have a great product and tens of thousands of people that have already tried and love it. So now Annie is going to walk you through our plans to scale our business.
Given the gap in the dumpling aisle, we expected to see a fair or small market opportunity, but that just isn't the case. Coming into this year, the frozen food market in the US was around $55 billion and growing, and that growth has accelerated as a result of consumer behavior changes resulting from COVID. Within that market, the dumpling segment is around $230 million. And coming into this year again, it was growing faster than the overall frozen foods market at 8%. Weekly grocery spending has also increased by 17% since the onset of COVID. This is all good news if you're looking to sell frozen dumplings in grocery stores. So despite a growing segment in a growing market, there's no household name in frozen dumplings. Mei Mei is poised to take over the aisle with our delicious dumplings and our community of engaged eaters. The first major step of our transition from restaurant to dumpling company is what we're calling our outpost model. We started this in September, as you heard a little from Alyssa, by winding down some of our restaurant operations. We're really limiting our hours now to higher volume takeout and delivery windows on the weekends, and we're spending the rest of our time making our 100% hand-folded dumplings. And we have established a presence at a number of farmers markets in the greater Boston area. These are communities where the large slice of our pre-COVID customer core lives. Since they aren't commuting into the city anymore, we've started going to them. We've made 14 appearances across 3 venues, and we've sold out of dumplings at every market, despite quadrupling our market stock from our first to our most recent experience on Saturday. We also have 2 additional outposts booked for the winter to continue our fall momentum. And the best part about this growth is that it's driven by customer pull. The farmers markets that we're growing to are ones that have been reaching out to us because their customers want to see our dumplings at their markets. So this is going through January, and starting in February, we're looking and running through most of next year. We're entering what we're calling a transition phase. And this is focused at getting our production costs down and our dumpling capacity up. We've explored a number of options for how to do this. We did a test run at a co-packer. We've also piloted a folding machine that another local business graciously let us play with. And we've ultimately decided that we want to maintain production control and take advantage of the restaurant space that we already have by buying our own machine and bringing production capacity in-house. We'll be hand folding at full capacity, which is around 6,000 dumplings a week or about 500 sellable packs of 12, and calibrating our fillings and wrappers to begin bringing machine folding online to supplement that and eventually take over the huge volume. We're also working to obtain wholesale permitting so that we can sell larger volumes through B2B channels instead of the current B2C model that we're following as a restaurant. And we'll sell first through pop-ups at specialty provisioners and then by distributing through retail outlets. We're building this pipeline by leveraging the long-standing relationships that Mei Mei has built with our vendors and partners over our 8 years in business. Why are we so quick to change to machine folding after years of hand folding in the restaurant? Well, let's find out on the next slide. The main cost driver of producing our labor, giving away the lead, producing our dumplings is the folding labor. And in a pack of 12 dumplings, you can see that it adds up very quickly. Even without reaching the next economy of scale for our ingredients, switching from hand folding to machine folding will cut our cost per pack down by 40%. So now we'll take a step back to see the full picture. The outpost launch and transition that we've already talked about is a year 1 approach, focusing on the greater Boston area. We'll continue those same tactics into year 2, but expand our reach regionally to the rest of New England and into New York. In years 3 to 5, Mei Mei is going national. At this point, we'll scale back our outpost to special events only so we can focus on B2B distribution, and we'll have outgrown the restaurant production capacity. This means we'll be moving into a dedicated manufacturing facility or to a co-packing relationship. As you can imagine from the phases that we just briefly walked through, we're planning for rapid growth in both dumplings and revenue. By the end of year 2, we'll be stretching the restaurant space to the max and preparing for a move to a facility that will allow for the required jump in volume. which we're projecting to be about 4.5 million dumplings in year 3 and 9 million in year 5, which frankly seems unimaginable in the space that we're in now. And so we're really looking forward to this opportunity to grow outside. We have a lot of work to do to get there, and we're hitting the ground running. So our next steps are for driving our local and regional sales demand, and we're really doing this by leveraging the existing relationships with our customers and our vendors, and then additionally by converting our restaurant into a full-time dumpling manufacturing space. We're turning our dining room into a packaging line and finished product storage, and we're turning our hotline into folding stations, and we're also bringing the folding machine in-house so we can begin getting that online. So you've heard a little from each of us, but just a refresher, Irene, our founder and chef, Alyssa is sales and marketing, and I'm Annie, and I'm focusing on operations. So sharks, what is our ask of you today? Well, we think it's pretty simple and pretty easy. It's just eat more dumplings. We have been really lucky over these past few months to be able to finance our year 1 plans through grant funding and by bootstrapping with the assets that we have at the restaurant. So we're laying the groundwork for the phases that will follow by spreading the dumpling love. And there's nothing that we would love more than to feed you some dumplings. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
What a dynamic trio. Thank you, Irene, Alyssa, and Annie. And once again, Sharks, my apologies that we do not have samples for you today because that looked delicious. And of course, I'm hungry. So let's go back to our panel for some feedback or clarifying questions. Let's start with Stacy.
Hi, thank you. Great presentation. Yes, I do want some dumplings. So just a clarification on what you're looking for. I mean, how would that look for you? And then I have a quick follow-up question. What's the remaining time on your lease for the existing restaurant?
Yeah, sure. So when we started putting together this pitch, we did have a dollar figure in mind, to be quite frank, that we were going to be asking for. But things have changed for us in the last couple of months. We've been very lucky, as I mentioned, to receive a number of different sources of grant funding for different reasons, but all of which are able to support the work that we're looking to do in the next year. And so what we're looking for now really is exposure and getting people out, right? We have a really strong brand history here in the Boston area. And so the more people we can get, the more of our brand advocates that we can get talking about us outside of this market in the short term, the better.
Lease-wise?
Yeah, and lease-wise, thank you. We are in this space until June of 2022. 23. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that runs our plans by a little bit.
Right. I guess my assumption is just that you're paying more in rent than you could in an industrial area simply because you're in a location to attract foot traffic. Whereas if you become a manufacturing facility, it would seem that you could save a lot in your lease. I'm not sure if that's even makes sense or if that's an option for you, but that seems to me that that's going to be a issue of concern maybe sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so we would very much like to be in more of a manufacturing space sooner, but we have kind of made the decision that if we're going to be spending the money on this lease, that we should take advantage of the space and use it to the best of our ability and try to make that not totally something.
You bet. So it doesn't sound like you're looking for a big loan or anything at this point, or necessarily any big investment dollars, but I've seen a few food businesses and you seem to be on the right approach in that you go with the regional and that region just keeps pushing you out to more and more people. I'm in California though, so maybe you could speed it up.
We'll work on it for sure.
Thank you so much, Stacy. How about Jason?
First off, I'd like to say great presentation. I agree everything what Stacy said, and I happen to love dumplings myself, so don't worry about the word getting passed along. And I have 2 children, so they love dumplings too, as well. A 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I kind of got them hooked. So great product. My question for you is great pivot from the restaurant to moving towards the manufacturing space. I mean, I know that was pretty difficult, but you made good use of the property that you're using right now to convert that into a manufacturing space. Have you ever thought about, going into the frozen market as well?
Yes, I can take that. Right now, we are doing packaged dumplings, but into 2021, our plan is to pivot into frozen dumplings. And as we key up our wholesale license and start targeting wholesale sales, we do want to make that shift into a frozen dumpling line ultimately long term.
Okay. And I would assume that if you do make the shift to the frozen dumplings, it'll probably be more to a pack. So therefore, you need more staff and then probably a bit more space and also additional equipment. So with that, you mentioned that you get grant funding. So do you have enough funding available to you now to support you through that growth if that happens sooner rather than later?
Yeah, we do anticipate we have enough runway for our year one plans and into year two. The nice thing is we've been in touch with another local dumpling producer called Jaju Pierogi, and their production level is probably where we want to be about halfway through year two. And they're currently in about a 3,000 square foot facility with their production numbers. We have about total square foot here, up and down, about 2,400. Okay. And so the nice thing is we're able to see a space comparison and capacity comparison for what they're doing compared to what we have right now. I think in all, if everything was to go faster than our anticipated plans, we would outgrow this space faster and need investment to move into a larger manufacturing facility before our intended plans of when this lease is up. Something we've been considering as we make our expansion plans is whether we need to start a new entity, especially for a wholesale license, or get a wholesale license for our existing business, Mei Mei Restaurant. And we're curious to know how that would affect us if we were to go and apply for funding loans in the future. Is it better to have a history with our business, Mei Mei Restaurant, or a new business, a new entity, fresh start?
Yeah, so I'll take that. So those will be two separate businesses because right now you're a restaurant and doing some light in-house manufacturing of the dumplings. And if you're looking to go more large scale, going into business to business type of business, then yes, that is a totally separate entity because the restaurant is mostly business to consumer and the wholesale is business to business. So you're selling to places like larger big box realtors or whomever is buying your product. So with that, banks typically like to look at you having 2 years worth of financials already and some history from that. There can be some consideration from the restaurant side of the business, but not much because you're going into a different arm, which is full-blown manufacturing. And that has a number of different variables involved with that. And we just want to make sure that you have, everything already lined up in terms of suppliers and all the other resources you need to run that successfully. So most definitely, that would be something that you want to venture out into is creating a new separate business arm for the manufacturing component. And initially, I would assume that you would probably have to find capital, from another alternative provider to help you with that. But for bank financing, it's usually 2 years of successful, profitable business. And then we'll look in terms of helping you with equipment needs and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Let's turn it over to Jonathan.
Again, like everyone else, I did get hungry in that presentation, and your marketing sense is very strong. So excited to find an opportunity to sample the dumplings in Boston, frozen or fresh, sometime soon. Thank you for a very thoughtful presentation too, that brought in the meaning of family and where this really fits into the overall ecosystem. Question for you. I mean, I remember. Gosh, I mean, I vividly remember having dumplings in Shanghai, and you see the people behind glass making them, and there's such care and precision, and you kind of wait for a table, and you get hungry, and you smell, and then finally you sit down, and it's just like freshly made right out of the kitchen. What is the diminution of quality that you'd feel or taste by freezing these? I mean, can you replicate the same taste, or is it like at least 90% as good, or do you compromise anything by going from what really made you successful initially to a frozen food distributor?
Sure, yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about too, going from a restaurant model to a packaged goods perhaps longer shelf life product. And for probably the past 6 months, we've been running tests. This idea did come about to us back in the summer when we were scrambling to try anything to keep our business going. And over the fall and yesterday, I just had another batch of about 2-month-old frozen dumplings, and I had them for lunch, and they're still pretty good. So we've been concerned about that, and I usually steam them at home, and my husband can't tell the difference between the ones I bring home fresh from the restaurant to the ones that he eats from our freezer. And so we've been really happy with the results that we've had over our test through the fall. And the flavors are quite similar. We do have really unique flavors, so we've been really happy with the results of our frozen products, and have made a few choices on our flavors to go with items that will hold up better long term in the freezer.
That's great. And when I've seen companies at this stage before that are involved in food production, um, there seems to be a decision point at some point. They say we're going to be a designer of foods. We create the recipes, we create the image, we decide what the health elements will be. Then there are manufacturers of food, and then there are distributors. And a lot of early stage companies in this space seem to initially say, well, we'll just do all three of them, and then they realize, but that's hard work. So we need to find a shortcut somewhere. We're going to design it, but we'll outsource manufacturing to someone else, or we'll manufacture it, but we'll find someone else to be our distributor, because it takes so much capital to do all three. The table is really set for large companies that are dealing in very big numbers to try doing all three at once. Is there any one of those three elements, design, which I can't imagine you'd give up, manufacturing, or distribution, that you could imagine outsourcing to a close trusted partner?
I think the first one, I think we're very aligned on this. The first piece that we'd be happy or even eager to have someone else take over is definitely the distribution. And coming into this phase and this sort of pivot, we played around with outsourcing manufacturing to start. We spent some time with a co-packer out in Western Massachusetts and actually did a test run, but ultimately just decided that we aren't ready to give up the control coming out of the design phase into the production yet. Until we have that right, we're not really ready, right, and at volume, we're not ready to give that part up. But the distribution, absolutely, and potentially down the road, we'd be open to moving back into a co-packer direction or having some kind of contract manufacturing arrangement as well. Because the critical part for us is really getting the brand story and making sure that the taste is good. So the design is something that we would never give up. And then I think it gets more and more likely as we get further down the supply chain.
And what would you need that you don't have right now to establish the ideal distribution partnership for where you think you are in years 1 and 2?
I'm not sure if we have a ready answer for that question. That's a new one.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some established relationships, thanks to being a restaurant in business for years. And Boston's a pretty small, it's a city, but a pretty small food community, tight knit. And so we have a lot of those relationships that kind of are going to lend themselves well to being able to get into distributors' trucks a lot faster. And so that helps, but that is definitely a more local regional push. Yeah. So I think as we're starting to move out of year one and starting to think about looking forward, getting out of New England, that's going to be the big gap, I think, that we need to fill still.
That's wonderful. And feel free to not answer this question if it's off topic or out of line, but I think a lot of the ICCC participants would be keen to understand, who are these organizations giving grants to great companies like yours? A lot of them are looking for bank loans, but if grants are available, that's probably better for them.
Yeah, so as the resident grant writer, we have really been able to put together a patchwork of grant opportunities. The biggest one that we have received that we're very excited about is through the state of Massachusetts. It's a food security infrastructure building grant. And we were doing some emergency feeding work earlier in the year, but those funds are also permissible to basically put towards any kind of investment in infrastructure that helps increase local food production and the level of food sovereignty that we have here in this region. In addition to that, there have been a number of restaurant specific grants that we have been able to access, and so we feel very, very fortunate to have been able to do that.
Congratulations for you. That's great news.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And now we'll hear from Saron.
Just to be clear, there's no capital ask today?
That's correct. Originally, we were going to come here and ask for capital to help us move into a new manufacturing facility. However, given how things are going with our restaurant business and the restaurant industry in general, we've decided that it makes more sense to position this as a transition of our existing business rather than an expansion. So we would love to come back and ask for capital once we've used up some of the runway that we have with the assets of the business, but we think we can get to another milestone before that point. So our ask today is really, we would love to use this incredible network of people to help us find some advisors who can assist us with figuring out the next steps in distribution, in scaling the business, and especially because this is a transition to frozen food, which is a new area for us. Folks with experience in frozen food as well as national chains, that would be incredible to add to our network.
Got it. Thank you. And first up, I think great job on the presentation and the pivot. I live here in Boston and I'm so excited to see your food on shelves. I wanted to ask another clarifying question. I think Jason made a great point around, are you going to, he suggested you should lease your equipment to minimize the downside. What are your plans with the equipment? Have you already purchased it? Are you leasing it? And is there resale value to the equipment you're purchasing?
Right now, our plans are actually to purchase equipment. As we mentioned, we did receive a couple grants recently, both from the state of Massachusetts, and some of the stipulations in those grants is to use it for capital expenditures like equipment that can keep our business going. So because of those grants right now, our plan is to purchase both refrigeration and a dumpling making machine to be able to grow and scale the dumpling business.
Got it. And would you find somebody to perhaps purchase it, or would you sell it to the co-man you plan to partner with in the future?
We've actually been in talks about different ways we could do that. We are in talks with a couple co-packers as well as Commonwealth Kitchen here in Boston to be able to manufacture at their facilities and either do an equipment share. So we purchase it and we're able to manufacture at their facilities as we grow, or we can, of course, keep it in-house until we grow out of this space. So we're sort of in talks about how we could arrange those relationships in the future.
That's great that you guys are trying to be nimble with those fixed cost investments. It's hard, but it's great that you're thinking about all those things.
Okay, well, thank you, judges, for your comments and your clarifying questions. At this time, I think we can also provide some feedback, any advice moving forward, some quick thoughts from each of you. Let's start with Stacy.
So I was just thinking that I know you're not looking for a loan, but when you are, the time will be once that wholesale license is in place, because obviously now you're ready to launch, etc. So, I mean, if you're thinking about it, wait for that to come in would be one of my suggestions.
Thank you.
Jason?
Yeah, Stacy pretty much hit it right on the back, because I'm in banking and we usually look for, 2 years of business and being in business and profitable business as well. And also all the proper licensing in place as well. So, continue to go down the path that you are right now to get the grant funding and other outside investments. And just, if I were you, I would make sure that I probably would lease as much equipment as possible versus owning it. Because if anything goes down, the wrong path, at least you're able to get out of leases a lot faster than having to sell a piece of unique equipment.
And Jonathan.
two things. One is I would certainly try to think about who is my ideal partner and how do I build to get to that. If it's, hey, Trader Joe's has a wide range of frozen foods and they're all pretty good, I'd love to get on Trader Joe's food shelves. What do I need to get there? Could I build up a bank of inventory that was large enough to give them comfort that we could satisfy their demand if this thing took off? So how do I get in there, and who in the ICCC network has a relationship or an introduction available to get me in there? Second thing would really be about leveraging some of the shared commercial kitchen workspaces that are available. And you've seen LA Prep and Chicago Prep develop as kind of a WeWork for food makers just like you. We've got things like Commonwealth Kitchen in Boston, which are a little bit more retail facing, but still same kind of concept. There are these types of organizations out there where maybe you don't need a machine 24/7, and that equipment could be shared with other entrepreneurs like yourself.
Right, and Saron?
So my advice to you guys, look, you've built an impressive restaurant business, and as you guys are pivoting to this frozen business, you're gonna need to scale and grow. And I think you guys are being smart about eventually, using co-mans. I think the key thing with co-mans is finding, high quality ones you can really trust and really building that network, but also making sure that you can make those big investments if you do win some of those big accounts, whether it's Whole Foods or Kroger, or pick your favorite grocer. And so I think that's, I'm really excited for your success, but being able to know, okay, where am I also going to need to make future big investments, and making sure you guys have the capital. It's great that you have it today, but can you still get grants in the future, or will you need to find other sources for that? And so just being creative and continue to be nimble, I think will be really important. But I'm really excited for you guys. I think there is a need in the market for, an artisanal brand like this. And I love dumplings. So I'm excited to see this, like I said, on shelves. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much again, Irene, Alyssa, and Annie, and best wishes to you. I can't wait to try those dumplings and be your ambassador.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.